this celebration going to be? He was out back.
Good afternoon, dear friends. My name is Andrea Hill there, and I was a student of Colin's beginning in 1990, and I've made a close friend of both Michael and Colin since that time. Almost everyone who will speak to you this afternoon is someone who has been taught by Colin or who has been a friend of his, sometimes for many years. This is the story of Colin's life, and by the way, it would be impossible to talk about Colin's story without often mentioning Michael, his partner of 46 years. The two of them were soulmates, but also colleagues in a long line of creative enterprises all over Canada. Michael has had a big hand in the creation of today's event. Some of you were present at the wonderful farewell ceremony that took place for Colin at the Manning Chapel at Acadia University, led by the Reverend Tim McFarland, who was also one of Colin's students. A few of the things you will hear today come from that ceremony, but whereas that was a highly emotional goodbye to Colin just 3 days after his death, today's is a celebration. A celebration of a wonderful life, well lived, of a friend we were all happy to know and to love, and of an exceptional artist, teacher, and human being. We extend a special welcome to Colin's twin brother, Herb, who has come from Calgary with his wife, Diana, to be with us today. We also welcome others who have come from away. Jeremy Gibson, old friend who has flown from England, John Mills, novelist and retired professor who has come from Salt Spring Island and has known Colin and Michael for nearly 50 years. Glenn Montgomery, distinguished concert pianist from Lethbridge, Alberta, and we will be hearing from him soon. Bill and Marie Clark and John Moore, old and dear friends who have come from Toronto. And one of Colin's first Acadia students, David, now Professor Matheson, also from Ontario. There are also many more of Colin's former Acadia students and colleagues with us today. The rest of us are more or less locals who have known and loved Colin as a neighbor and a customer and a friend. Welcome to you all. We are meeting here in the Festival Theatre for a special reason, because it was Colin who had the original dream of founding a professional theatre company here in Wolfville, and it was his dream on which Michael and Colin worked with many of us Valley people and good friends in Halifax and beyond to realize what became the internationally recognized Atlantic Theatre Festival. We shall talk more of the festival later. We shall also have music and poems that were dear to Colin's heart and poems written for and about Colin. But let's start with an interview which Colin gave on the occasion of Acadia's production of The Merchant of Venice with Walter Borden as Shylock. We'll see Colin as he looked in 1991, and we will hear something of his positive outlook.
I think our aims and our goals for Acadia are perhaps very, very ambitious, even though when we put them into a structure they may look simple. I think Nova Scotia has the possibility to do something extremely important in the training of young actors. It is the reason I have stayed here so long and feel that someday perhaps we can develop a very, very strong training program at Acadia and perhaps link it to a need to the community. There is so much talent in this community, and I'm hoping that we can, through having people like Michael Langham come in here, who came last month, and also Bill Glasgow, who's coming in a few weeks, people who are major theatre people in Canada, to come here and to look at the possibility of developing a training program here, and perhaps even more, to link it with a theatre company that may be an offshoot of the training here at Acadia. That is my dream, and I'm hoping very strongly to fulfill it. And in fact, this April, we are putting some things together to do a pilot project in regards to that very important matter.
My name is Andrew Avon Gillis, and I was also a student of Colin's and Michael's at Acadia from 1990 to 1994. Colin's story starts in Calgary. Not many know the details of his early life. Colin's birth name was Richard Bassett, and he and his twin brother Herbert were born in 1942, in the middle of the Second World War, to a German father and an Austrian mother who had been in Canada only 10 years or so. It was very difficult for them. When he went to school, his mother told him to tell the other children that he was Australian, and that if anyone discovered he was Austrian and not Australian at all, he must say that that was what he had said all along. Colin's mother's family ran a restaurant and guest house near Esterhazy in Austria's Burgenland, and his mother told Colin that Adolf Hitler sometimes used to eat there in his young days. Colin's father was from a prosperous farming family near Hanover and worked in Calgary as a butcher with Calgary Meat Packers, later absorbed into Canada Packers. Colin's family were fanatical sports players, particularly hockey. His brother, Hank Basson, 10 years older, was soon to become an NHL hockey goalie, playing in his time for the Chicago Blackhawks and the Detroit Red Wings. Colin's twin aspired to be a sportsman like their older brother, but Colin did not. Early on, he persuaded his mother to send him out for tap dancing and ballet lessons. He told the story that he once rushed back from a dance lesson, late for hockey practice, and asked his mother whether it would be all right to go to the practice in his ballet tights. His mother said, "Of course, dear." But when Colin pranced to the ice in his dancing gear, his father was furious and threw him out of the rink. That was the end of his hockey career. Colin was a handsome child, and early on had considerable success as a model, modeling clothes for Eaton's and Hudson's Bay catalogs. His mother insisted on him biking downtown from his North Calgary school every lunch break to try and nab another job. She drove him hard. When he was 14, he was able to buy his parents a car, a Plymouth Monarch, out of his earnings. He then started saving up to buy his mother a mink coat. Disaster struck when Colin and Herb were 15. Colin and his parents, without Herb, were driving out of Calgary one wintry November afternoon to buy fresh farm eggs when their car swerved on the ice and ran full tilt into a tractor trailer. Their parents were killed instantly. Colin was so grievously hurt that they held back his parents' funeral for 4 days so Colin could join them. They were going to amputate his arm and leg, but a great surgeon happened to be visiting the hospital from Europe and thought he could save the limbs. He did. Colin woke up after 7 days in a coma to find himself, like his brother Herb, an orphan. He spent 6 months in hospital, enduring brain surgery, among other things. The next 5 or 6 years were a time of terrible confusion for him. At the age of 17 or 18, he got involved in an unhappy marriage outside Edmonton, in which his mother-in-law refused to leave the couple alone. She referred to Colin as the cripple. They started a diaper factory, and Colin was a salesman as well as seamster. Sometime around then, he changed his name to Colin Bernhardt. At the age of 24, Colin could stand it no longer, and after trying to persuade his wife to come with him, fled to Vancouver, getting a job as an orderly at Vancouver General Hospital. Michael was starting the drama program at the newly established Simon Fraser University, and it was around this time that they met. He told Michael of his dream of becoming an actor, and Michael managed to get him accepted into a new drama program starting at Vancouver City College. And that's when Colin's new life in the theater began. The year was 1966. One of Colin's favorite poems was by William Blake. He used it in his classes and often recited it at home. Here it is, spoken by my friend and former fellow student, Charles Fellini.
Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire? And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? And when thy heart began to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet? What the hammer? What the chain? In what furnace was thy brain? What the anvil? What dread grasp dare its deadly terrors clasp? When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the lamb make thee? Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry?
Hi, everybody. My name is Emily Forrest, and I was a student of Colin's and Michael's from 1991 to 95. When Colin was recovering from his nearly fatal accident in Calgary, a nurse once asked him how he had found the strength to get through his multiple injuries, and he told her it was because he was determined to become an actor. Now, in Vancouver, he was finally on that road, and while still at drama school, was cast into small roles at the Vancouver Playhouse. When Colin and Michael came east in 1969, they both began working at the Stratford Festival, Michael as an assistant director and Colin as an apprentice actor. In 1972, Colin was cast as William in Shakespeare's As You Like It. A friend who was working at Stratford, Jeremy Gibson, saw him in the role, as incidentally did Andrea, and this year Jeremy wrote a poem recalling that time, and he's going to share it with us.
Enter sweet William, upstage right, glimpsed from the gods through specks of dust suspended in stage lights, his tousled, haloed hair streaked with wisps of straw, a beautiful, guileless youth borne up by honesty. Art rich, says Touchstone, cross-examining. Faith, sir, so. Not so, sweet William. You were rich as Croesus, not in the eyes of tellers, but richer still in all the hearts and minds and voices you drew out, cherishing the quirks and quiddities of your beguiling spirit. A rare, uncommon player on the stage of life, undreamt of by the melancholy Jaques. So, dear friend of my decades, step forward, taking your well-earned bow, and like the seasoned trooper leave us wanting more, as spotlights fade to black and tousled William exits downstage left.
In 1973, Colin toured Denmark, Poland, and the Soviet Union with the Stratford Company, playing small roles in The Taming of the Shrew and King Lear. Here's Colin on a cold day in Russia. He was one of the attendants who had to gouge out Gloucester's eyes in King Lear, and his murderous, scowling concentration was so terrifying that at every performance the cast would gather to watch him from backstage. Not quite the Colin we thought we knew. At Stratford, Colin appeared in a small movie made by Stratford actors, and here he is as an extra. While at Stratford, Colin was lucky enough to be taught by some of Canada's leading actors and to be directed by the likes of Michael Langham and Jean Cascon, not to mention Michael Bawtry, who became an associate artistic director of the festival in 1973. Colin always credited this time with grounding him in what became his life's work. Something else now from Colin's repertoire. Michael tells us that when he first met Colin, one of the pieces that Colin knew by heart was Paul's Epistle to the Corinthians, chapter 13, in the Old King James Version, where the word charity represents what today we would call love. And here's Raymond O'Neill to share it with us.
Though I speak with the tongues of men and angels and have not charity, I am become like a... Though I speak with the tongues of men and angels and have not charity, I am become like sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and have all faith so that I could remove mountains and have not charity, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. Charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, doth not behave unseemly, seeketh not her own, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth, beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Charity never faileth. But whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass, darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know, even as also I am known. And now abideth faith, hope, charity, these three. But the greatest of these is charity. I was happy to be a part of that Stratford season that Emily referred to in 1972. Though he loved the theatre, Colin decided he needed more schooling, and he left Stratford in 1973 to enter the University of Guelph. He studied not theatre, as you might expect, but the history of fine art. His drawing and painting were abysmal, he said so himself. But he spent much of his time at university learning to be a sculptor under the celebrated Canadian sculptor John Fillion, who thought he had a real talent. These are the only sculptures of Colin's which survive from those days, but they do show that he could have done a lot more in that direction. Colin achieved a BA in 1976 and went on to gain a Bachelor of Education the following year at Ontario Teachers College. Incidentally, his supervisor at Teachers College was horrified when Colin said that rather than high school, he would prefer to teach young children at the elementary school level. Women's work, said the supervisor scornfully. But by that time, Colin had already begun teaching acting and speech in Toronto, and decided he would rather do this than teach anywhere in the public school system. He taught courses at the alternative so-called 3 schools of art and at the University of Toronto's campus at Scarborough. While at Scarborough, he somehow managed to acquire a huge Harley Davidson, but he said that when he rode it onto the campus, his students all laughed so much to see him on it that he gave it up. Not quite his thing. We wish we had a photo. In 1977, Michael was invited to Banff, Alberta to direct a musical for the summer music theatre program at the Banff School of Fine Arts, as it was called at that time. Following that summer, he was made director of the program and invited Colin to teach speech. So began a long relationship with the Banff School, which was soon to introduce a winter arts program to complement its summer courses. Michael designed and ran what became the Music Theatre Studio Ensemble, bringing together actors, singers, composers, writers, and designers in a single ensemble for 6 months each winter. And Michael and Colin bought a wonderful acreage in the Columbia Valley, which was their retreat and where they spent weekends and holidays. Colin always thought of himself more as a city boy, but here he is enjoying life on the farm, Western style. The house was 2 hours' drive from Banff, and many friends and visitors spent time with them there. One of them, who was also a colleague at Banff during those years, was the distinguished pianist Glenn Montgomery. Glenn has flown from Alberta to be with us today. Here he is.
My first association with Colin Bernhardt was many years ago in a production that we put together of a cabaret called Les Chemins d'Amour. And certainly this Paths of Love was a very important symbol because Colin, for me, and I think for everyone, represented a path of love. You know, I have so many thoughts that developed from awakenings of the friendship that I had with Colin and with Michael. And so I have a limit, so I won't talk too much, but I could, if you all individually want to meet with me, I'll find 5 hours for each of you. Religion points to the possibility of something more magical existing. And I think art draws us to this possibility and even brings us to this point. But I always had the sensation that Colin simply resided in this magical place. I was very lucky to observe him directing, teaching, and to have the experience of him teaching. He worked with me to help me free my voice, which has been the secret of me playing the piano, for teaching, to be lucky enough to have students who have gone on to world stages as performers, but they have been taught also by Colin. He brought this extraordinary light into people that, as I said, I think he simply escorted us to and from. It was a remarkable experience to be close to him. You'll see some examples of that later. In 1981, March 14th specifically, I remember it very clearly because the next day was the only day I had a holiday in the whole year, and the Banff Center production, which was on the 14th, was a production of The Rite of Spring by Stravinsky, a very good friend who was assistant to Michael Botry at that time, who was heading the Inter-Arts program, a wonderful program which was the foundation and really the core of the whole development of the Winter Cycle program at that time, where we had so many wonderful guests and artists of all different sorts, bringing together this interconnectedness of the arts, which really is essential and which was illuminated in this time. Our production of The Rite of Spring was basically preceded by a one-act, one-man play by Michael, which described the experience of the first performance of The Rite of Spring in Paris, with all sorts of sound effects and bringing us right back to those moments. And my colleague and I, as the pianist doing this two-piano version, represented Stravinsky, and I believe me being Debussy, and the audience unwittingly were made into the ballet russe, observing and experiencing the very first presentation of that particular work. Now, I was part of the music program for the following 2 years, but this had transformed, this particular Inter-Arts program, with the vision of Michael and Colin being part of this very essential program, into what was called MUTSI, the Music Ensemble, or Music Theater Studio Ensemble. It was so mesmerizing, bringing together the best directors, the best composers, the best writers, stage managers, and with the focus of developing the singer-actor and the types of productions that were happening. I just couldn't help it. I jumped ship from the music department, which they didn't like, but I joined music MUTSI, which was one of the great decisions of my life. Ultimately, I got to be involved with various productions that we put together. The last one I did with Colin was called La Voix Humaine, the voice, the human voice, which was an opera of Poulenc's. Now, one of the exercises I do for my students is to try to show the deeper levels of communication, again inspired from Colin. I often will tell my young students, I say, I want you to tell me what I'm really saying when I say, hey, guess what? Today I'm really, really sad. The words, if you read them, would tell you one thing, but the voice communicates the truth. And Colin helped me to wake up and helps all actors. He's helped musicians. I've seen the transformation of people that were somehow locked in their voices, and his ability to change and transform them and all of us was remarkable. This wonderful connection of things. As I said, the words, when aligned with the human voice, make poetry, and when not aligned, make comedy. And Colin loved both. A person of such spirit, what I want to play for you is one of my favorite works, and the work that I think is the most joyous
of all that I've played. It's called L'Île Joyeuse by Claude Debussy. It was inspired by a painting of Watteau, where people gather by the docks and they're traveling to the island of Citerre, across the Mediterranean. And the music vividly describes, and very much in sync with the painting by Watteau. And so we get to, together with this music, travel to L'Île Joyeuse.
student at Acadia from 1992 to 1996. Here is another poem that Colin knew by heart, and Amanda Gillis will share it with us. How Do I Love Thee by Elizabeth Barrett Browning.
How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach, when feeling out of sight for the ends of being and ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need, by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely, as men strive for right. I love thee purely, as they turn from praise. I love thee with the passion put to use in my old griefs and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seemed to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death.
In 1986, Colin decided to leave Banff and apply to teach speech and acting at Acadia University. To his amazement, he got the job and moved to Nova Scotia. He soon amazed students and faculty alike. Dave Sheehan recently wrote a letter to Michael in which he said, "We met Colin in his first year at Acadia. We both worked in the Beveridge Arts Center, and who wouldn't notice the arrival on campus of one Colin Bernhardt? My wife Kelly and I began a group class with him only a few months after his arrival. We were young and open and searching for something bigger. He knew just what we were looking for, though he would never be so bold to claim such a thing. He gently led us through his mental and physical exercises. Our love and understanding deepened, and he taught us things that we seemed to already know. Somewhere inside us, he was able to unlock mysteries, knowledge, and understanding, all through love. One day, quite recently, I told Colin what a profound impact he had on the love that Kelly and I have shared over the 29 years of our marriage. His foundation work in the early days of our lives together has been a cornerstone of understanding, a beacon of enlightenment. He knew that we knew. Kelly and I have been truly blessed to have Colin in our lives. He lives on in all of us, and of course, in our children too. The flood of his tide has given us the greatest gift of all, love. Sincerely, Dave, Kelly, Dylan, and Jessica Sheehan. As you can see, this was not just an acting and a speech teacher. This was someone who had the gift of transforming people's lives. 4 years later, the director of drama left, and Michael was invited to stand in as director, later confirmed in the position. Colin and Michael ran Acadia's theater program together for many years.
In 1991, following some racial incidents in Halifax, Michael had invited the splendid actor Walter Borden to play Shylock in the with the students of the Acadia Theatre Company in Michael's modern dress production of The Merchant of Venice. I was a student at Acadia then and had the privilege of playing Portia in the production. Colin played Shylock's friend Tubal, and we have some video of Colin's performance playing this obsequious friend of Shylock's, a fellow Jew bringing him some bad news of his daughter's elopement.
How now, Tubal? What news from Genoa? Hast thou found my daughter? I often came where I did hear of her, but cannot find her. Ah, there. A diamond gun cost me 2,000 ducats in Frankfurt. No satisfaction, no revenge, no real luck stirring up one night on my shoulders. No sighs, but no my breathing, no tears, but my shedding.
Yes, other men have ill luck too. Antonio, as I heard in Genoa.
What? Ill luck.
As an argosy cast away coming from Tripolis.
I thank God, Is it true?
I spoke with some of the sailors that escaped the wreck.
I thank thee, good Hugo. Good news. Where in Genoa?
Your daughter spent in Genoa, as I heard one night. 4 ducats.
Thou stick the beggar in me. I shall never see my gold again. 4 ducats in a city. 4 ducats.
There came divers of Antonio's creditors in my company to Venice that swear he cannot choose but break.
I am glad to hear it. I'll plague him. I'll torture him. I am glad of it.
One of them showed me a ring that he had in your daughter for a monkey.
I'll tell on her. Thou torturest me too long. It was my turquoise. I hated the Polonia when I was a bachelor. I would not have given it for a wilderness of monkeys. But Antonio is certainly undone.
The production was noticed by Lloyd Robertson on the CTV News. Year after year, Colin and Michael went on to direct fine productions of many classic plays. In his 20 years on the staff, Colin directed many plays with the students. They included Euripides' Medea, Lorca's House of Bernarda Alba, Pinocchio, Our Town, Under Milkwood, Arthur Miller's The Crucible, and Ibsen's Enemy of the People, among many others. At Colin's farewell ceremony last December 21st, another Acadia student of Colin's, Oren Dash, gave us a picture of Colin's influence at Acadia. Oren was unable to be with us today, but we are bringing you a video of his tribute on that day because it sums up what a lot of Colin's Acadia students felt about Colin.
Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you, trippingly on the tongue. These hallowed words of Shakespeare first warmed to my ear from the whispered breath of Professor Colin Bernhardt, only a few feet below us, in the basement of this very church, the holiest of places. My introduction to those words was the flint, and Colin the steel, that sparked my love of Shakespeare, and along with it, Colin's zest for life. Like so many of my fellow students, a fire and passion grew within us, and we were cast and forged in the love of acting, with the art seared deep within our very souls. Colin Bernhardt was actor, director, writer, and producer. His genius of the arts and the mastery of his craft have shaped more than just existential productions of awe-inspiring heights. He has been leader in shaping the hearts and minds of those he has touched. 1,000 points of light that have transformed into a force of positive energy that transcend time and space. His voice will continue to live on and be heard from the mouths of all of us that have shared in his pursuit of caring, kindness, and love for our fellow man. For myself and so many others, as witnessed here today, he was the template of what it is to truly live life, to grasp it, to seize it, to cherish it, offer it as a gift, and to send it back from whence it came. Colin is well noted as an educator, a mentor, and a true friend to so many. but all of us, his former students, know he played many other roles. A beloved pal, always up to speed on the students' lives and current happenings, he was deeply trusted by us, his students, and was therefore always in the knowing. A great confidant to our daily dramas, as it were. He was the ear to listen and the greatest of shoulders to cry on, open to sharing his opinion from his own life experiences and to offer cheering up whenever anyone was in need. He was also taxi driver for many a student who needed a ride in the rain from the theater to Maine or an impromptu afternoon adventure to destinations unknown and beyond. No schedules, no timelines, and for us starving students back then, most importantly, no charge. I remember a time in particular he had taken a number of us student actors to Halifax for one of his touring theater productions. We set out from the Acadia Theatre and made our way to Main Street. The traffic was gridlocked, as is sometimes the case. A few moments of idle pause had passed, and I could see Colin's ever-growing impatience. He looked in the rearview mirror at us students and smiled that ineffable Colin Bernhardt smile. And with that ever glint of mischief in his eye, he stretched out his arm with a wave to stop oncoming traffic, and to the driver's chagrin across the yellow line and the squealing of tires, we launched ourselves. Right through what was then the gas station, to the sound of the service bells ringing as we crossed the lot, where the waiting attendant had gas hose in hand and a look of utter shock and disbelief. Colin simply shouted "thank you" as we passed right on through with a wink and a smile. To add insult to injury, unbeknownst to any of us, we had turned down the wrong way of a one-way street and couldn't help but notice a police officer that was directing traffic appearing rather confounded in disbelief at the sight of our vehicle quickly approaching from the wrong direction. He made what seemed to be a motion with his hands to stop, and so Colin simply returned the gesture with an elongated wave goodbye. As we passed, next turns with our noses pushed against the window, chuckling to ourselves. This was one of his lessons in life. Do what need to be done. Colin was also a money lender, or dare I say, a money giver. Both he and Michael have touched many a life with their generosity that would no doubt fill this very room. Colin's students were no exception to their kindness, whether it was $1 for a coffee from the cafeteria or a personal check of an undisclosed amount for financial assistance in a troubled time of need. Unequivocally, he was there. To his students, Colin was the uncle we all wished we had in our families, full of youth, vigor, and gregariousness that knew no bounds, a genuine interest in our lives, and a caring concern. And so ultimately, we became part of his family as he ours. He was also Lord Protector to his students, devoutly loyal and fiercely protective of our spirit and well-being. He cared not for the trappings of academia, reputation, prestige, or label. His plight was to give voice to the voiceless, defend the defenseless, and right the wrong in confronting injustice. If ever one found themselves in the deep recesses, alone in the darkness, as was once my case with alcoholism and the death of my mother, you could be assured that you need only look to him, and like any Tolkien heroic character, he was there, always the first unto the breach, so to speak. Clearly, Colin was many things to so many people, but in the end, Colin was quite simply Colin, ineffable, indescribable, and sublime. Though he is beyond words, for those of us here today that knew him, only a moment in his presence was unforgettable. I know today we are here to celebrate the life of Colin Bernhardt. However, it is very hard to utter the word Colin without following it with Michael. For you cannot speak of one without the other, for they share all the attributes and qualities that we hold most dear. Of all the examples in life, rarely could we find a more suitable representation of a truer partnership, the very definition of balance and augmentation in the highest regard. Colin the yin to Michael's yang and vice versa. For over 46 years, they worked together as cobblers of dreams and wonderment, creating their own influence for the betterment of those around them. Hundreds of lives, very much moved by their presence, that have now echoed and rippled from hundreds into the thousands and beyond. Those that have felt their love and continue to pay it forward, or perhaps the whispered breath of Shakespeare that now passes from our lips to ears anew. Of all their masterpieces, both great and small, perhaps the greatest of all was their undying love for one another. Michael, please know our hearts ache for you. We share your sadness and celebration as we pay tribute to Colin. We love you deeply and continue to send our caring support. You are in our thoughts and prayers. So, friends, Romans, countrymen, in honor of Colin Bernhardt, please continue to speak the speech I pray you as I pronounced it to you, trippingly on the tongue. God bless.
Colin's dream of starting a theater company in Wolfville was finally realized in 1995. Colin was an actor in the company that first year, and in fact, spoke the first words ever spoken on this stage as the bosun in the storm at the beginning of Shakespeare's The Tempest.
Bosun! Here, master, what cheer? Good. Speak to the mariners. We'll fall to it. And we run aground. Mister! Mister! Hey, my hearts! Cheerly, my hearts! Yeah! You're taking the topsail, take to the master's whistle! Blow till our burst thy winds, if room enough!
Good bosun, have care, where's the master?
I pray you keep it below!
Where is the master, bosun?
Do you not fear him? You mar our labors. To cabin you do assist the storm.
Hey, look, be patient!
When the sea is. Hence! What care these roarers for the name of king? Silence to cabin! Oh.
Colin also taught speech to the festival actors. Here he is, teaching Jen Smith, who played Miranda in The Tempest, fresh out of Dalhousie. It was filmed as part of Adrian Clarkson's CBC film, Birth of a Festival.
It's a liquid sound. Just go, alas. Just go for the feeling, and let the feeling of that consonant determine how much vocal energy you give it.
Okay.
Don't worry about projection or performing at this point. Just give the alas, alas. And it'll have the carrying power you want anyway. I know the vowel is what gives it carrying power, but we'll just work on the consonants.
Okay. Alas, now pray, work not so hard.
Very nice. Can we bring it closer?
Okay.
Okay, once more.
Alas, now pray, work not so hard.
Yes, can you bring it closer?
Okay.
And if you bring it closer, then you can bring more awareness into here.
Okay.
Don't worry about it having carrying power. I think we've seen the huge space we're going to work in, and we're instinctively trying to fill it. You won't have to. If you truly connect with the center of your feeling, everybody hears it. It's a strange thing. That.
Okay. Alas, now pray you, work not so hard.
Yes. Now look at me when you say it. Just feel the difference. Alas.
Okay.
Make it very, very close this time.
Okay. Alas, now pray you, work not so hard.
Okay. Let's do it as that we're doing it for camera.
Okay.
Okay, let's see what happens. But it's the same intensity, but you don't need any kind of volume if it's for camera.
Okay.
Alas.
Okay. Alas, now pray you, work not so hard.
most of us here know the story of the Atlantic Theatre Festival. It had a brilliant beginning with a series of productions of world-class quality, which in its second year attracted over 30,000 visitors to Wolfville, and was estimated to have brought 6 million directly and indirectly into the local economy. But it fell into the hands of non-believers. And when it was in serious trouble, those running Acadia University at the time decided to break the deal the university had made with the festival. In return for the $2.3 million which the festival had attracted in public money to convert this building into one of the most beautiful theaters in Canada, Acadia had agreed to rent the building to the festival for 20 years at $1 a year. They now took over this theater after only 9 years, possessed the ATF's assets, including all the lights and what is now the Farmers Market building. By 2003, cash was tight, and stripped of its assets, it was unable to mount the season. In 2004, there was a fundraiser to restart the festival, and Colin spoke at it. He told a story which had had a big impact on him. Here is David Matheson, student of Colin's from 1989, to repeat some of what Colin said at that time.
Last week I flew up north to Iqaluit on Baffin Island to be part of a group visit exploring the educational needs of the Inuit and how Acadia and other universities might be able to help. On our second day, we met David Igayakolk, director of Inuit Arctic College, who is also a traditional drummer, and he told us a story. A year or two earlier, believing how important music and performance were to the educational process, he had decided to bring his drumming for the first time into the classroom. Twice a week he met with a class of young students, grades 6 to 8. He spent the class drumming. The students showed no interest and were happy when the class was over. The next class he did the same thing, no words, just drumming. Next week and for many weeks following, they filed into his classroom twice a week and he drummed. 3 months later, he was still drumming. And then one day, as he played his drums, a young student got up and began, hesitantly and almost ashamed, to play. He went on drumming and he helped her a little as she drummed alongside him. Next class, she came straight to the drums, and 2 others joined her. Something was happening. By the next class, the entire group was clustered around the drums, beating all hell out of them. His class had finally begun. Within 2 more weeks, they were hooked and came back to his drumming sessions like an addiction. A year later, when Queen Elizabeth visited Edmonton, she was entertained by a group of young drummers. They dazzled her and the audience and were presented with an award for their highly professional performance. They were the drummers from Iqaluit. 10 years ago, amid a lot of excitement, the Atlantic Theatre Festival opened in front of a distinguished audience of theatregoers. As one of the 5 founders, I am immensely proud of our tenacity and our courage. We changed this building into what was described by Adrian Clarkson and others as one of the most beautiful theatres in Canada. And we gave an opportunity to some of Canada's and Atlantic Canada's finest theatre artists to prepare and perform work on this great stage here for you. The festival has had its difficulties, but through them all there has been a steady drumbeat of belief and determination. The festival and its artists will once again be making its magic for you, for the people of this region, young and old, to bring you the inspiration which can only come from the act of creation. Art is not a frill. It is at the center of our lives as human beings. Please join with us from tonight, from this moment on, and be part of the drumming. This was Colin's belief. And in fact, the festival had one more season in 2006 through the hard work of Peter Little, George St. Amour, Michael Botry, and many others. But they then handed over to a new team, and owing to a failure of leadership in 2007, it stopped for good. Nothing made Colin so unhappy in his last years as the fact that this building is no longer the living, breathing center of the theatre, which he had first dreamed of in 1991. Nothing would have made him more happy than to see the festival once again rising from the ashes.
Colin's reputation as a voice and speech teacher, and as much more than that, I will share with you that on a number of occasions I went to Colin as a professional actor when I was working with the festival here. And as I stumbled at the beginning of the Corinthians, one loses one's nerves and actors are desperate to turn to someone for help. Colin had the most extraordinary way of working with me. I can only speak for myself. He was just a wonderful theater teacher for performance, not only voice, and I felt he was there with me a little bit. He always taught me that to stumble is fine, but it's the recovery that's important, Raymond. So thank you, Colin. Colin's reputation as a voice and speech teacher took him over the years to the European Opera Studio in Belgium, to the UK, to Australia, and twice with Michael to Finland, where he became much loved. The only video in existence of him teaching comes from Finland, and here are excerpts of Colin taking actors through his famous sun exercise. Been there, done that. We suggest you listen to him as though he is talking to you, which of course he is.
As you know, without the sun's energy, there would be no life on this planet. Feel the rays coming closer and closer. Feel it starting to penetrate, pour into your big toes, both toes from both feet. Into your heels, your Achilles tendon, your ankles, saturating your feet with this power of the sun. You into the calf muscles. Feel it going into your kneecaps, and particularly behind your kneecaps, where often we hold our tension. Feel it climbing into your thighs, radiating this energy. You, the sun. You cannot contain it. And it begins to seep out of the lower back into the abdominal muscles. It seeps out into the lungs and into the vertebrae between the rib cage, the diaphragm. It begins to seep into the shoulder blades, all around your chest, deeper and deeper. Feel it on your tongue. Feel it in the roof of your mouth as a radiance. Feel it going down through the opening of the tunnel. Your pharynx, down. Through your larynx, down. Through your heart, down. Communication comes from. Feel it going into your forehead, your eyebrows, those important nasal sinus passages, the nose, the cheekbones, the jaw. Feel the sun going right through your nasal, open nose, right through into the center of your skull. Not an iota of tension. Alive, aware, vital. Feel it, you. Feel it on your cheeks, your jaw, your chin, your lips. Feel it going through the gentle piercing of the lips into the oral cavity. Feel it on your tongue. Feel it in the roof of your mouth as a radiance. Feel it going down through the opening of the tunnel. Your pharynx, down. Through your larynx, down. Through your heart, down. Deeper. Down to where you breathe. Going deeper and deeper. Take time. Feel this. You feel it growing right outside this room.
Go right over to the theater where you're going to perform. Feel it radiating there. Go deeper. Go out to Helsinki. Go to Germany, go to Holland, go to Sweden. Go to Russia. England, America, North America, Africa, India, Israel, Afghanistan, to the entire globe, because you are the globe. You're not the globe. Feel this oneness. It's your life force. Bring it back from way, way up there, and start coming back gently. Gently. Through a whole verse of universes within whole verses within all that space. Possibly other life up there that you're coming back through. A planetary phenomenon beyond our comprehension, coming back through that gently. 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 Feel it on the top of your head. And feel it seeping in through your toes, your arms, your arch, your heels, your feet, your ankles, your calves, your knees, your thighs, this precious temple, your body. In this deep state of relaxation and oneness with your power, observe your breathing. And you will notice something. That the rise and fall of your center where you breathe is effortless. Notice the energy that allows that rise and fall to happen. And you don't need any more energy than that. We waste most of our time with too much anxiety. That's all the energy you need. Observe it. How much energy does it actually take for that muscle to rise and fall? We've already dealt with the 5 elements, water, earth, air, and fire, with this one sound. The first one, ha-ha, is the water. Ha-hum is the earth, the M is the earth. When you let the sound out, it becomes air. When you listen to what you've done, you're back in the fire, the radiance, notice. Listen to it. You can hear the radiance traveling right up to the universe. Listen again. Yes. Now listen, what did that do to you? Did it give you a vibration? And why am I asking, did it give you a vibration? Because this is what it's about. Your life force, vibration, ever becoming, ever expanding. Okay, another one. Roll over and recreate the feeling, not the posture, the feeling that you have on the ground, and recreate it in the upright standing position. It's best to roll over after releasing so much tension. You take that life force, you present it to the world now. This takes a thought. We've disconnected from nature. Look what we're doing. This makes a difference for the planet, what's happening in this room. Okay. Just free your knuckles a little more by jiggling your hand like that. Just say this. When you do it, feel your life force, your vibration. It seems joyous. Can you make it more joyous? The Brancusi sculpture, the embrace. I don't want to go. Okay, don't miss anyone. Everybody hold their up.
There are two other activities in Colin's very active life which we are remembering today, and in a very special way. As long ago as 1989, Colin was brought into the writing program at Banff to help writers read their work in public, something which writers are notoriously bad at. It was an experiment, but a successful one. And from that year on, he spent 1 or 2 weeks every year working with writers, some of them very well known, some of them at the beginning of their careers. What Colin did with writers was extraordinary. And when Colin died, Michael had the idea of asking poets whether they would like to contribute to a book of poems commemorating Colin. He thought there might be 10 or 12 contributions. There were 31 contributions. The book, called Remembering Colin, has been printed and published, and here it is. It will be available in the lobby after this celebration. It costs $10, and the net proceeds will go to scholarships for writers at the Banff Center. We hope you will all want to purchase it. Here is part of just one of the poems by an Australian poet describing what it is like as a writer to have a session with Colin, from The Gift by Gayleen Carlos.
All nerves and tissues and tendons, every fiber in his being attenuated. The long, thin fingers, the artistic hands, the expressive gestures, the funny faces, the wild, messy hair flung into the wind, outstretched arms taking you in, darting eyes that stop and suddenly see into you. Eyes that have known pain and sorrow and love and loss. The quick quiver of his voice, full of pathos and power. This smile, this laughter, this big-hearted, big-boned body, this face that could at any moment crumple and fall, or cry, or break into laughter and love. Highly strung, intense, no fence, no defense to shut out the world. This sensitive soul with too much heart in it, this talent, this gift, this man more like a prophet or seer than a mortal. And when he said you were good, that was gold. Coming from him, when he told you you had a gift, you believed him. He encouraged, enriched, yet he didn't say things lightly. If he said it, he meant it. He gave you the greatest gift you can give anyone. Everything he had to give of himself. And everything he saw in yourself. Going into that room, alone in that room with Colin, to lie on the floor and give yourself over with him, right beside you, right with you, his voice in your ear, in your head, whispering, chanting, compelling, this spell, this trance, like hypnosis, like singing, like breathing, like the freest free association that has ever been invented, like Joyce, like Beckett, but better, but different because yours. He took you into his arms. He gave you your words, your work, back to you. A fast-flowing river that's still running, still flowing out into an ocean of images and contrasts and colors. He made something metaphorical and mystical. Something symbolic that was greater than both of you. It could almost make you believe in God. This hour of holy, this strangeness, this gift of Colin. The courage, the fire, the fear, the catharsis, this strange, startling process, this therapeutic encounter, and he's like a channel. He's channeling something inside him, in you, and the two are coming together, sacred, sensual, and body and mind and mouth and stomach, and so fast. The words keep flowing and going and going. You can't think, can't stop. Your words, his, yours, mine, his, hers, ours, mine, yours, ours, more than this or that. Your eyes closed, and he's listening, and you're listening, and listening, and speaking, and repeating, and rocking, and rolling, and tripping, and dancing, tapping into something else, somewhere else. You can hardly keep up with it, hardly know what's happening, never known anything like it. This extraordinary experience, this hour with Colin, that you will carry with you the rest of your life forever and be profoundly changed.
Hi, I'm Wendy Wielden. Colin also began to work at Crosby Center at the inspiration of Martha and Crosby, and I believe that Susan Mess was here to speak on behalf of his. So if you would like to come up.
Crosby Center is a 28-day residential alcohol, drug, and gambling rehab located in New Minas. We treat people from really all over Canada and various parts of the world. We follow what's called the Minnesota model of treatment, and to that I try and add some other things. And Martha Crosby's sitting right here. One day Martha said to me that I should call her friend Colin. So I did. Turned out I lived almost across the street from Colin and Michael. So Colin came over to my place. We're both early morning people, and very early one morning we had coffee and discussed Crosby House and Colin. I must say, I didn't know what to think. So I went into work, and I said to staff that Colin was going to come, and we were all going to participate in a session that we would do. We would talk about it and then decide if we thought it was suitable for our clients. Our clients range. We take no more than 10 people at a time, and we have all kinds, all ages. We've had everyone from 14-year-olds to 91. I was intrigued by Colin's sessions, not all the staff so intrigued. So I said, okay guys, we're going to try it anyway. Well, Colin came to us every Tuesday afternoon for an hour, and I can't tell you how long, well over a year. Staff came to love Colin. The clients loved him. They would, in a rehab, the days can be long, and the program starts at 8 in the morning with a walk, and they go right through to meetings at 9 at night. So this was something they looked forward to all week, and our clients, we start program every Monday with a new group. So on a Tuesday, they wouldn't know quite what was going to happen. They would hear Colin was coming, but no one could quite describe what he would do. So, and I still can't tell you what he did. One Friday, and Colin would drop in periodically. So he dropped in one Friday afternoon. We were having a board meeting. So I was trying to explain to our board of directors what Colin did. And I said, oh, here's Colin. So Colin came in. We still don't know quite what he did. But I can tell you, they were originally in a room in our building, and then we were able to use the United Church in New Minas. And Colin was thrilled because they had more space. But when Colin was there, they laughed. They had a great time. They wrote poems. They really, really enjoyed it. We had one man in his 40s, and he was with us for 2 weeks, and really, I'm not sure, we didn't know what to think. And he didn't speak, he didn't do anything. One day, he came in and he had long hair, and he cut his hair. And then he wrote 14 pages that he gave to Colin. Now, I'm not sure what he wrote, but this man has, that was sort of the turning point for him. He's done remarkably well. He still keeps in touch with us. But whatever he wrote for Colin, that and the haircut, I guess, was what took it. I'm trying to think of words to describe Colin. We would say at Crosby that we knew when he arrived, he would fly into the driveway. He was always early. He stayed late. He had lots of energy. He was generous, calming, hard to believe, but calming, much loved. Everyone loved him. He loved life. They did work in, I say, poetry, voice. He gave them confidence to go out and face the world. They looked at life in a different view once they had met with Colin. And he became part of Crosby House. He would drop in a lot. And I know, I'm sure Michael could tell you, they had some phone calls they probably didn't need to have in the middle of the night on occasion. But he kept in touch with clients, and there's all kinds of wonderful stories that I could tell you. I won't, but I could. And I came to know Colin better because I would drop in on the way home, and he had they had beautiful gardens, and I would sit there, and it was very peaceful and relaxing. And the cat would love us, so it was very nice. But I have not been able to replace that slot at Crosby. I kept hoping Colin would come back, but I don't think we're going to be able to find someone. So anyway, we truly miss him.
Thank you, Susan, for that picture of Colin. The indescribable poem. Yeah. I've been a friend of Colin's since 1986 when he moved to Wolfville. He met me because I had studied eurythmy, and he loved eurythmy, so we began meeting, but I never actually knew when we met or how we became so close. It just happened. Well, we're coming to the last chapter now of Colin's life, a wonderful life. In May of 2011, both Colin and Michael were diagnosed with illnesses, serious illnesses. Michael with heart disease and needing multiple heart bypass, Colin with colon cancer. Both felt confident of recovery. Colin's operation was in early September and Michael's 3 weeks later. We're going to tell you this because there's a story attached to this time. Colin went to greet Michael after his operation and went into the recovery room. And like everyone else in there, he had tubes coming out of them and he was bandaged up. Colin went right over to him, clasped his hand, kissed his forehead, and he said, "Michael, it's been successful. You're going to be fine." And then he sat holding his hand for another few minutes until a nurse came up to him and said, "That's not Michael. Michael's That's not all. The next morning, Colin came back into the hospital and bumped into the same nurse. The first thing she said to him was, "You've got a nerve, taking the hand and kissing the forehead of that woman." Colin went on to take 9 months of chemotherapy at the Valley Regional Hospital for 2 secondary tumors in his liver. Michael says that as they went up every few weeks to the 2nd floor of the hospital, Colin would tap dance in the elevator. He would then march in the oncology unit, calling out, "Stop everything, I'm here." At Christmas, he gave all the nurses Christmas cards, and in each there was a stone with words like love, grace, believe, or hope written on them. One of the nurses in the department was Hope Gillis. Here she is.
Colin Bernhardt touched the lives of many people, the people that are in the room today, and certainly the people in our oncology unit and our oncology team, which is made up of many individuals, our oncologists, Dr. Merriweather, chemo nurses, oncology nurses, our cancer care navigator, etc. We all saw Colin as a force. Yes, he was true force of energy. and he had a way of bringing that out in all of us. I asked my colleagues the other day, I told them I might be saying a few words, and I said, how would you describe Colin? What would you like me to say when I'm on the stage? So they gave me a few words that I wrote down. Certainly memorable. Ethereal energy, storyteller, brilliant, lovable, captivating, animated, aura observer, passionate, thoughtful, contagious enthusiasm, French fries. And only Michael knows the story behind that one. And of course, his famous line when he came in, "I'm here." That line inspired me to put down a few words together in a poem that I very recently put to melody. I'd like to share it with you today. I am here amongst the children who dance, who play, amongst the cowboys and the writers, amongst the rocks, amongst the clay. I am here with the rising of the sun, with the lavender that lingers, with each web that's delicately spun. I am here. I am here to fill your heart with song, to fill your days with pleasure, and the yearning to belong. No need to worry of my arrival from body to divine. You need not seek to find me, for I am here. I am here all the time.
Colin's oncologist in Halifax, Dr. Danny Rayson, and his assistant Helen soon fell under his spell and knew they were dealing with someone special. And everyone, including Colin, was optimistic that they would be able to remove the tumors and bring him back to health. In late October, after looking for years over at the shore opposite their cottage on the Bay of Fundy, Colin and Michael decided to visit that shore and spent an idyllic 48 hours in that magical piece of Nova Scotia, looking back at everything back to her. Here is Blomidon from the other side. And here is Cape Split, also from the other side. As Colin said, it was like going backstage and seeing everything from the performer's point of view. At Advocate, before heading back, Michael took what turned out to be some of the last pictures of Colin. It was only in November, after his first liver operation and a month before he died, that they discovered the cancer had spread and was inoperable. Colin fell out of bed on the morning of December 18th. "Have you fallen out of bed, Colin?" asked Michael. "Yes," said Colin, and half a minute later breathed his last breath. As someone wrote, how appropriate it was that Colin's last word was yes.
So, that is the story of Colin. But of course, it does not begin to cover that extraordinary human being that we all knew and loved. Colin exuded love and energy and fun, and so many of the stories about him reflect this. A friend told how she was driving along with Colin one day, and they started laughing so hard that they had to pull over to the curb to recover. It doesn't mention his eternal efforts to play the piano, or his ongoing determination to learn a language. He bought a Rosetta Stone course for learning French and was working with it until a few weeks before he died. He adored young children and was wonderful with them, So here he is, giving a tap dancing lesson to Janet and Peter Eaton's grandchildren.
Dancers, tap dancing, not ballet, not jazz, not modern dance, is we learn how to stand. Okay, just stand straight. And you see, Queen is already in first position. So bring your little feet closer together. That might be, Jane Kelly, Fred Astaire, doing a circle like that with his arms up because it's necessary, or it might be someone else. And then you put your hands down. It's very important to do that. Just put your foot up there. One. And then back. Now the next one. One. And back. 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 Very nice. Okay, now it's feeling a rhythm. Yeah, your feet want to dance already. So then you can go heels and you go tap, heel, tap, heel, tap, heel, tap, heel. Nice when you have your shoes on. Okay, and the same thing other way. Tap, heel, tap, heel, tap, heel. Okay, that's that. These are the things that we might do later on. This one. Shuffle, hop down. Shuffle, hop down. Shuffle, hop down. Shuffle, hop down. That's it.
Bravo, good. Good job. Go ahead, Davin, clean the up.
There's no right or wrong. So, right. Tap.
Colin was obsessive about going to secondhand stores, to antique and junk stores, to Frenchies and Value Village, and was known to dress up in old clothes so that they would take pity on him and give him a better deal. He loved buying jewelry and would give necklaces and bracelets like the one I'm wearing that he gave me, to his many women friends at the slightest provocation. When he went away to Banff each year, or to Europe for work or holidays, he would send as many as 50 postcards back home. Occasionally he was known to write them on the plane saying, having a lovely time, wishing you were here. Here's a selection of them kept over the years by his friend Darren Winter. As well as having a great sense of fun, Colin was deeply spiritual and was fascinated by synchronicity, by morphic resonance, by telepathy, by psychic phenomena, by the journey of the soul. He also adored animals. Here he is with some of them over the years. Colin with his beloved Pushkin, an Afghan hound born in 1970. Note the afro on Colin, not the dog. Colin with his Timo, born in 1991. And Colin with his adorable Sinbad the sailor lad, who slept with him until the day he died. And here's a short footage of him taking Sinbad the kitten for a walk, and Colin doing a very good impression of the Pied Piper. many of you will know, was consumed with a passion for real estate and was the despair of real estate agents everywhere who showed him property after property and always thought from his great enthusiasm that they were about to make a sale. Though it was he who in 1990 did buy the beautiful house on Main Street in Wolfville, which he shared with Michael, and which over the years they magically renovated, restored, and improved. But perhaps the place he loved most was the cottage that he and Michael bought on the Bay of Fundy, and which they turned into a place of real beauty. He loved looking out to the ocean, feeling its healing power. The last creation that Colin and Michael worked on together was a replacement tool shed, to which they added a sauna and a bunk room. Never known to do things by halves, these two. Here's a quick slideshow of this last creation. Note particularly the windows, which Colin absolutely insisted on having and which gave so much character to the finished building. during their life together, he and Michael would perform all the old songs again and again. Colin had a fine singing voice, and in his last 2 or 3 years took lessons with our own Nancy Denton. It's fitting that we should finish this celebration of Colin with Colin singing a song in his own home, with Michael accompanying at what turned out to be Colin's last Christmas. The song, called Johnny's Song by Kurt Weill, is full of Colin's optimism and hope in the future. It's worth giving you all the words in advance. When man was first created, I'm sure his maker meant he'd be of good intent, kind heart and love, forgiving wrong. And though through ages fated to climb our wandering way, at last we'd find the day when joy shall be our song. I hear from every doubting Thomas the world's a mighty cruel place, the broken heart, the broken promise, the evil of the human race. But you and I don't think so. We know there's something still of good beyond such ill, of right beyond wrong. And we'll never lose our faith and hope and trust in all mankind. We'll work and strive while we're alive, that better way to find. As up and down I wander my weary way and long, I meet all kinds of folks who listen to my song. So, here is our last view of Colin. Warm, creative, loving, funny, passionate, modest, and absolutely unforgettable.
Share this with us today. I especially want to thank my dear students of yesteryear. We were working this morning and I was treating them rather as though they were 20 and forgetting they were just about 40. But we had a wonderful time, and thank you to all the people who participated to make this thing work, and especially our hero, George St. Amour, who was responsible for all the photographs and the slides. It's lovely to be in this theatre, a theatre that Colin and I and Andrea and others did so much to create, and what a lovely feeling it is to make this a theatre again. I want to finish, well, I should tell you that afterwards there are some refreshments in the lobby, and that there are also copies of the book we've created, the book of poems called Remembering Colin, which I'd love you to buy and I think you would enjoy. And I will finish, if I can, with one other poem which Colin knew by heart and often spoke, out on the Bay of Fundy, looking out over the water. Break, break, break on your cold grey stones, O sea, and I would that my tongue could utter the thoughts that arise in me. O well for the fisherman's lad, that he shouts with his sister at play. O well for the sailor boy, that he sings in his boat on the bay. And the stately ships go on to their haven under the hill. But oh, for a touch of a vanished hand and the sound of a voice that is still. Thank you.
You're faithful. Well, I always say it's so bad we learn about people only after they die. Like it's so many, such a rich life, but
You coming down this way?
She has her. She's maybe big.
Watch out, you end up in the wheelchair yourself.
You're all good.
I helped out with the online broadcasting. I helped set that up.
At Crosby?
At Crosby. That's a broadcast on the internet, yeah. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Your daughter could watch that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we just broadcast this live as well. I'll send the link. Yes, that's what I was doing.
Oh, did you get in touch with you?
Yes.
Yep. Well, you call me and I'll
send you an email.
Yeah.
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 You know, a lot of things you learn, just by doing.
Absolutely.
When it comes to that disease, yes, it is a disease.
Yes. Very familiar with the disease.
I think
Yes.
at times.
My grandfather was about a year before he passed. And he was a counselor. Yes. He is in Stellarton, Joe Wilsack's assistant. Yeah, oh yeah. Well, no, he knew my grandfather. Yeah. Yes. I'm very passionate about your talks.
Well, I love you.
Blessings.
Thank you. Now, if we could only get a surgeon. That's right.
Now it's only 4 months now.
Well,
Because every time I see you, it's so fewer months. So is it?
Well, you have to wait for someone to die before you get into the OR.
Oh no.
I thought I'd put the classified in. They would like to meet you Thursday before the OR.
Yes. It was nice to be talking.
Oh, I was so excited.